Okay, so I'm going to start off with a brief introduction. So hello, my name is Laurel Gumpert, and today I'm going to interview you for the World Trade Center Oral History Project. So first, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview with me.
My pleasure.
Thank you. The purpose of this interview is to give you an opportunity to give your personal perspective and story of the World Trade Center disaster. By sharing your story, you will help us capture this historic event in a unique and personal way. And we believe that the stories we gather will be invaluable to educators, researchers, and the public. So as you recount your story, please share as many details as possible. I know that some memories may be difficult to talk about, so I really want to thank you so much for being willing to share your story with us. So would you be able to just state and spell your first name, please?
Sure. Lisa, Lisa.
Okay, perfect. So the starting time is 12:10. So Lisa, would you be able to just tell me, a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, a little bit about your family?
Sure. So I grew up, my maiden name is Lisa Steinberg, and I grew up in Great Neck, New York. And when I graduated high school, which was in, I don't mind sharing my age, was 1980, I went to Cornell, and I actually studied electrical engineering, which was very unusual for women back in the day. It's probably still unusual. And I'm also very tall, I should tell you that. I'm 6'1", close to 6'1". So during my time at Cornell, I came back to New York one weekend, and I met my future husband, Andrew, at a bar in Manhattan. And really the initial attraction was that he was tall. He was about 6'5". So that
Wow.
And so I was a junior at school at the time, and he was working on Wall Street. He was on the floor of the American Stock Exchange. So we dated while I finished school. And then I took a job with IBM up in Syracuse, New York. And so we sort of were long distance, romance there for a while. And when I was 23, so this would have been in December of 1985, I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. So, at the time, Andy and I had been dating about 3 years. And many people would have probably run for the hills at that point, but he didn't. He stood by my side. I went through chemo at Mount Sinai Hospital in the city, and he was amazing and my best buddy. And right when I finished chemotherapy, we went to Florida. That was in March of '86, and we got engaged on his birthday. So it was like that week, and I was bald, and he was a real upstanding kind of guy. He was a good boy. Anyway.
That's so sweet.
So I'll fast forward. I went through chemotherapy in the city, and what happened is I was living in Syracuse at the time, so I had to move back to New York because my treatments were there. So IBM transferred me to the city so I could work in New York. I finished chemo, and then we moved in together because, and back then that wasn't that common. And normally my parents would have said no, but under the circumstances that I wasn't really feeling well, they wanted somebody to watch me and whatever. So anyway, we moved in together. We got married in 1987, and then we had twins naturally. They took out one of my ovaries. I did the chemo, but the other ovary was fine, so I was able to have children. And I had a natural set of twins, and as a matter of fact, my sister has twins too. They were in the family.
Oh, wow.
And so, so I had the twins in 1990, and we moved to Long Island, and I really thought, we were going to live the American dream and the white picket fence and the whole 9 yards. And unfortunately, that was short-lived because then on 9/11, obviously, Andy was working there. He had started working at the World Trade Center 2 weeks prior. He had left his job in May of 2001 and spent the whole summer playing golf and having fun. And around July, I started getting a little antsy. So you better go back to work. I worked. At the time I was working for Fleet Bank, which I was a regional manager for the retail side of the bank. So I had like 20 or 25 branches that reported into me. And I did very well, but I didn't do well enough to support a family. So he needed to go back to work. So he got this incredible life-changing opportunity on the 92nd floor of the World Trade Center, more money than we ever thought he'd ever make.
Mhm.
And the only hesitation was it's on the 92nd floor of the World Trade Center. And, you know, having lived through 93, I was
Mhm.
a little bit hesitant, but like, how do you turn down an opportunity like that? And of course, Andy said to me, who thinks like you? So,
Mhm.
and that was that. So I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's what you were looking for, but that's my backstory.
Oh, absolutely. So, we spoke briefly a little bit about, 9/11. But what was life like for you before 9/11?
I mean, it was great. I had the two kids at the time. My boys were 11. They were in middle. They had just actually prior to 9/11. They were in elementary school. In 2001, September of 2001, they had just started. It was their first week of or second week of middle school. They were in sixth grade. But it was great. I mean, Andy was a wonderful father. He was very into sports. And so he was the coach of every team you can think of. He made the boys try everything from football to soccer to baseball to basketball. I mean, you name it, he was the coach. Everybody in the neighborhood loved him. He was a big baby. You know, that was the kind of, and he didn't have the kind of job that prohibited him from being home at a normal hour. So he was
Mhm.
always home dinner time. So we'd always, be involved that way. I did the homework. He did the sports. He took the kids to all the whatever games, the big Giant fans, big Knick fans, big Yankee fans. Yeah, we had a great life. I really have nothing to complain about. We traveled, I worked full time. And so, that was always a little bit of a challenge for me, getting home and whatnot. But yeah, I have no complaints. And we had a great life.
Mhm. Mhm.
I still do. I'm very blessed. I'm surrounded by a lot of great people, and I'm very active in the community. And I should say that, I was always very big into giving back and being active because of what had happened to me when I was 23 with the cancer. And
Mhm.
so that was invaluable. Having a network and having a support system was really very helpful after 9/11 because you can't
Mhm.
do these things alone. So that's the big lesson I got out of this is that, you never know when the phone's going to ring and it's going to be you. And
Mhm.
therefore, it's so important to always be part of a community and do as much as you can when the going is good, because when the what hits the fan, you, you need your people.
Absolutely. Yeah. Um, so bringing us, to 9/11, what do you remember from that morning?
Well, I remember the night before I ran to Bloomingdale's to get my husband a bag full of new socks because his socks were ratty and he was brand. So, they always say like, always have nice underwear and socks on. He had good socks on. Anyway, but that morning, that night, I was supposed to go to a meeting. There was a community meeting for women in business. And Andy was home early, and it was the New York Giants were playing the Denver Broncos out in Colorado. And the boys really wanted to watch Monday Night Football. So we decided we'd stay home. My kid's favorite, Andy's favorite thing to eat, I mean, it's really stupid, was tuna fish rolled in American cheese, like tuna salad. So I made everybody the pinwheels that they so loved. And I decided not to go to my meeting, which ended up being a real blessing because I got to spend the night at home with the kids and Andy, and we watched the football game and we had a great night. Everybody went to sleep. In the morning, I remember Andy put on his new socks. He kissed me goodbye. He left early. He always took the 706 from Hicksville to the city. So he left, and one of the boys was up. It was Daniel. And Daniel said, bye, Dad. He gave him a kiss, but Mike was still asleep. So Mike, to this day, always kind of remembers that he never said goodbye to his dad. But, it is what it is. That luckily, we had that night before, so that's the good
Mhm.
thing. And so he went to work. And then I went to work. I was on my way. As I said, I was a regional manager. And so my boss was based out of Manhattan. And so I was responsible for the North Shore of Long Island. There was someone else that had the South Shore. There was someone that had Brooklyn and Queens. There was someone that had Manhattan. We had the whole tri-state area. Someone had New
Mhm.
Jersey, So my boss had a team meeting, but we did it kind of this way. We did it, we didn't have computers, but we did a conference call. So I was supposed to get to the Great Neck office. I lived in Woodbury, so I was driving west toward